Hey everybody, Robert with RC Archery, and you're watching Patreon only content for my Tier 1 and my Tier 2 videos. This week we're going to be continuing our conversation last week on stabilizer setup, and we're going to pair that with shot execution. So I'm going to tell you how to increase the tension in our body to help not only hold the bow up, which you might have encountered if you started running more front weight. You've got to be able to hold the bow up, and that's usually pulling and creating more tension. But I'm also going to go another step further, and I'm going to go through the actual shot execution with your release in order to help you have the steadiest sight picture all the way through execution. At the end of the video, I'll have a giveaway for our first 10 Patreon subscribers, and then I'll also have an additional giveaway for our first 20. So giveaway 1 and 2, you'll be able to give away a free coaching session and then one of my R-Shot center shot tools. All right, so when it comes to archery, what you need to do in order to stabilize your sight picture and what you're seeing downrange is to create tension in the body. A lot of people refer to this as back tension. Now, this isn't necessarily an ever-increasing aggressive pull or a snap. I see a lot of archers do this. They'll get here at full draw and then you just see them start pulling and pulling and pulling really fast, or they snap and almost jerk when they come back. That's not back tension, at least not to me. That's not the way that I like to shoot and not the way that I see is best with especially a compound bow. Now, when you get a stabilizer set up like what we talked about last week with more front weight, you'll see the need to increase that tension even more, because the byproduct of what we're doing with that front weight that wants to pull the bow down is we're having to pull it back up, and that means pulling into the stops harder in order to hold that bow up. Now, that's actually a good thing. And the reason this is working with that more front-weighted stabilizer positioning is because it is creating that more tension. And the more tension in the body up to a certain point where we start to shake and really have some problems holding the bow is going to allow us to have a steadier sight picture. But what it's also going to allow is keeping us from extenuating our movements or having jerks or dips and things of that nature. So it's pretty easy to diagnose your shot at this point. Your left and right should get really small, and really all you should notice is that if you let up on the tension in your back wall, that you'll see a dip and you'll actually hit a little bit lower on a weak shot. So it's really easy to diagnose with that. The way that we go about actually adjusting the leverage on what we're doing with our pull is through our loop length. Now, barring draw length and everything is perfect, the loop length is going to control how far back our hand goes and the pitch of our elbow up or lower. When we get a really short loop length, the elbow is really high. When we get a really long loop length, the elbow can start to drop down. Longer loops are going to give us less leverage. Shorter loops give us more leverage. So what you may find is that in order to make this shot style work the best for you, that you have to shorten your loop maybe 1/8 or 1/16 of an inch. And honestly, what I find with most archers, 3/4 to 7/8 is going to work really well depending on the string angle for most any archer. There's some few variances on that if you have a release with a really short neck, especially if you're using a Carter release like the Noctuit that has the jaw that goes across versus the hook. Those have really short necks, so you'll have to have even a longer loop than what you normally would. Depending on the release you have, like for me personally, when I ran a Noctuit, I had to run a 1/8 longer loop than what I do on my Fulcrum Flex and my Bisflex because of the shorter neck on it. Outside of that, that 7/8 range seems to be really well for a lot of archers, and 3/4 if you have a shorter axle to axle and the string is coming back a little bit further on your face seems to work really well too. Now, in pair with that, next thing we're going to talk about is the actual shot execution itself, so that I can show you how to work the release and work your body to get the smoothest sight picture all the way throughout the shot. All right, so now we're getting into the shot execution itself. When we look at shot execution, we're going to combine some areas in order to decrease the total amount of movement in one actual motion. So by combining two together, it actually decreases the total, and it's going to allow you less movement on your sight picture downrange, and then also less variance on what you're going to see on point of impacts too. Now, don't be afraid of this. I'm not going to make you, pat your stomach and rub your head and all that kind of crazy stuff. You don't have to do anything really, wild on this. I'm going to show you two motions that work together and will pretty much allow you to fire any release you use. Resistance release, thumb release, hinge release, even an index finger release. So it works really well. So let's think about things for a moment with the compound bow. compound bows have a draw stop or a limb stop. Now, when it comes to a limb stop, you have absolutely no movement at all unless you have a rubber draw stop that hits that limb. And then when it comes to our cable stops, we've got a little bit of movement, but when you're pulling hard already on that bow in order to hold it up, the amount of movement that we have from there is very small. And what you'll see is if you hit that amount of movement and you just can't continue to pull, you'll actually start seeing your sight picture pulled off to the target. And if you're right-handed, it's normally going to be pulled off to the right. If you're left-handed, it'll be pulled off to the left. And that's because you pull and you're overpowering with the pull of your arm, your release arm. So how do we combine the pull and not have to get ourselves to a point where we're pulling ourselves off target and still execute a strong shot and a surprise shot? Well, we focus on how we pull. When we're pulling back, and I'll use a hinge release example, I can rotate through with the thumb release, just forget I have a trigger on it for a second. When we use a hinge release and we're pulling through and we're here, instead of just pull, 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 let's think of the direction of pull, and it's basically squeezing down the hand and curling the fingers as we pull. So use a point on the hand as your reference point. A lot of times what I tell archers is that outer finger. If it's 2-finger release, second finger. If it's 3-finger release, third finger, or maybe second and third, depending on how you feel comfortable with the individual release you're doing. Or really, if you want, you can focus on pulling all fingers, because if you look at your hand, if you start to pull, these outer fingers take up way faster than our index in just overall range of motion. So even if you really pull on all fingers, you're going to get this release to rotate, or you're going to get a trigger to pull, whether it's an index or a thumb trigger. But I will say, with overall squeezing of the entire hand, it can change the back of your hand here, it can change your anchor point, you can have some issues with that. So focus on the outer finger and focus on driving the outer finger into the elbow as you're pulling. So it's a very minimal pull, and it's really, with my shot, I'm maintaining pressure with my back. I'm not increasing it. Pretty maxed out on how I'm holding the bow up. And then from there, I'm just pulling these outer fingers and kind of squeezing in on the release. And on a hinge release, that works super great. I will say, when you set it up, make sure that you set the speed up to where when you hit anchor, and if you use a click or not, however that works, but when you get to anchor and you click, or you're just getting settled in, this index finger needs to be completely straight and it needs to be relaxed, because otherwise, if you don't, you'll fight yourself and you'll have a lot of problems. If you're going to use a thumb button release like myself, what I do is I put the thumb button in my thumb. I honestly have found that deeper in the thumb works really well. It works the best because the bottom part of our thumb, as we start to pull in, this bottom part here, you can see it moves in towards the center of the palm faster than the end of our thumb. Less movement overall is needed. Now, I know there's other archers that say use the tip of your thumb. If you're more comfortable using the tip of your thumb, by all means do it. Whatever works best for you, that's what works best for you. For me, I like it here deep into my hand. And if you notice, even with me, I have a pretty big thumb release right here, the button rather. So, I mean, it still comes decently out. You know, it comes out pretty far. So for me, what I do is I focus on pulling the thumb and the outer fingers into my hand. So it's, doing this motion as an over-exaggerated motion. And that's how I fire my release. But it's still the same motion, whether it was a hinge or an index finger release where you're just focusing on curling the index and pulling straight back, or whether it's a resistance release and you're focusing on pulling straight back with it. It's the same with any of them. You don't have to worry about how you're doing it. For me though, with the thumb, I have to focus on my thumb because that's where my trigger is and the pulling point. And if I don't focus on the thumb and move it a little too, then I get really relaxed on my thumb from all the years of shooting a hinge, and I just actually come off of it. So I'm gonna do one more, and I'll actually get a little closer to the camera so you can see my release hand on this one, and I'll slow it down for you. I want you to be able to notice that I'm not grabbing at the release, I'm not punching at the release, I'm not doing anything that's gonna be detrimental or damaging to my shot. It's still a surprise release, it's still a steady movement, but it's allowing me to maintain pressure all throughout the shot cycle, and it's helping me keep from having any extra movement in my sight pin. Simple as that, guys. I hope this video helped. Stand by. I'm going to do our giveaways next and be able to find out who won the coaching package and also who won the R-Shot Center Shot tool. All right, everybody, giveaway time. I've got 2 giveaways, and that's actually why this video is coming out so much later in the week. Normally, they're not going to be out this late. We were so close to being able to hit both giveaways that I wanted to wait because I knew we had hit the numbers that I needed for 10 and then 20 so that I could do both giveaways in 1 week. Now, giveaway number 1, I have a list here of everybody that has signed up in numerical order based on when they signed up for the first 10 and the first 20. I've combined them on a list. Now for you first 10, you will be in the drawing twice. So the same person could possibly win, I don't know. I have a random number generator on my phone here. This is how I'm gonna do the giveaway. I'm gonna pick a random number. You're assigned a number here and we'll be able to pick them and show who won it that way. Now, the first one, numbers 1 through 10, the winner will get a free coaching session with me, and this is an all-inclusive, my full coaching package. If you want the digital video that goes along with it, you're more than welcome to it. If you don't want that, that's fine too. It's gonna be part of the package though, and it's all-inclusive. You've got bow fitment, form, draw length, loop length, tuning, the mental side, everything goes along with that. With it, I'm gonna take little bits and pieces of it, and then I'll talk to you about it beforehand to make sure you're comfortable with it. But I'll take little pieces here and there, and I'll put it in some of these Patreon videos, and I'll also put it on my YouTube channel too, just so everybody can watch it and maybe go through certain aspects that I see a lot of people struggle with or that I think might be a good area and that you say is, yeah, that's okay. The second giveaway, so all the way 1 through 20, is going to be for the new R-Shot Center Shot tool. Now this tool, I actually have not received the final version yet. I should be receiving it next week. I did a prototype, I've had it and used it. Wanted to tweak a couple things on it to make it more reliable and easier to read the numbers and everything on it on the final version. And all I'm doing is just waiting on that to come in the mail to me from the printer so I can make sure it did look okay and everything measures right and everything works. And if it does, I'll order a batch of them. We'll do the pre-orders just like we did on thumb pegs. But to start, you'll see here, I have 1 through 10, and I'm gonna hit generate here. So the winner of the first one is number 9. Number 9 on our list is Patrick F. So Patrick, I will send you an email. I have your email address based off this Patreon channel. I'll send you an email and get in touch with you and we can start working through what we want to do there. I'll go through and fix this here for the second one. You see we have numbers 1 through 20. Number 13, Lucky 13. All right, number 13 is Felix Z. Hopefully we can see that here. Felix, same thing, I'll send you an email. You have won the R-Shot Center Shot tool and I'll get in touch with you. I'll send you some photos of it, some pictures, a video of me using it super fast so you can kind of see how it would work and go through. And I will also send you all the attachments that I have for it. So I have different attachments for 27, 23 standard and micro diameter arrows that you'll be able to see and be able to use on there. But guys, I appreciate everybody watching. I appreciate everybody for joining. It really means a lot to me that you like the content enough to be able to add some value into these and that I can do these special videos for you that you can see more information than just my normal YouTube videos. Hope everybody has a good weekend and a good week next week. I'll have some more of them out for you then.